Mayor Rick Goldring, and welcome to Burlington Matters. Burlington Matters is a regular program here on Cogeco TV that I host, featuring topical discussion about issues and events and news that is happening within the city of Burlington. And today I'm very pleased to host our two of our three MPs from the city of Burlington. We have Karina Gould, the member for Burlington and the new Minister of Democratic Institutions. Congratulations on your appointment to the Cabinet. As well as Pam Damoff, the MP from Oakville, North-Burlington. And just for your interest, our other MP is Lisa Raitt, who represents the riding of Milton, but that does include a big part of North-Burlington in her riding, and Lisa's running for the leadership of the Conservative Party at the current time. So welcome to both of you. It was a year ago I had you on the show, and I remember, Karina, shortly after you got elected, I said, you know what, Karina, it's going to go by really fast.
Yeah.
And how's it been?
Fast.
Yeah.
You're right. Fast and wonderful. Yeah.
Good. How about for you, Pam?
Same thing, actually. It's hard to believe it's been a year since we first went up to Ottawa.
Yeah.
Lots of exciting things that have happened, though. Lots of really good things.
So you were a councillor before in the town of Oakville. What's been the biggest change for you from being a town councillor, focusing on municipal issues, to going all the way to the federal level and with a different focus? I mean, obviously you're in Ottawa, you're not in Oakville, or you're not in Oakville and Burlington as much, but you are here.
And that is the biggest difference that I notice, and I miss being at as many events as I used to be able to attend. You know, a lot of events are held during the week and I'm not able to be there. But having said that, a lot of it's the same. You're helping people, and you know, Rick, your job is just about helping the residents that you're representing, and whether it's at the federal level or at the municipal level. I do think the municipal experience helps coming into Ottawa, because infrastructure is such a huge part of what our government is looking at, and the needs of the cities and towns is infrastructure. So I think that's helpful, but it's been a great experience. I'm really enjoying it, but I do miss being here as much as I used to be.
Excellent. So, Karina, once again, congratulations on your appointment to the Cabinet. You get this portfolio that's Minister of Democratic Institutions. And, of course, everybody's reminding the Prime Minister, reminding all of you that during the election campaign of 2015, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said that 2015 would be the last year of an election using the first-past-the-post system. Karina, over to you. Now you got to figure that out.
Yeah.
So how are you going to figure it out? I mean, I was at one of the sessions that you hosted with regard to democratic reform. I think I might have chaired a table discussion. There certainly wasn't consensus at the table. I don't think there was consensus in the room. There's a lot of people say, well, we had this system, first past the post, whatever we call it. People don't necessarily know it by name, but it's been working well for a long time. Why do we want to change it?
So you rightly point out
that... So I'll leave
it
wide open to you.
I
won't try to corner you on the issue. I'll just give you the opportunity to express your views.
Sure, thank you. So I am the Minister of Democratic Institutions, so part of that responsibility is upholding and safeguarding and working to improve our democracy. I've been the Minister for 10 days now. It's, I think 10, maybe 9 days. So as you can imagine, I'm doing lots of reading, and I'm immersing myself in kind of the work that was done by my predecessor over the past year, looking at where we are and thinking about ways to move forward. So I'm really eager and really excited to do this work. I've got my sleeves rolled up already, and I'm off to the races. So I'm really looking forward to it. But you're right. It's a big challenge. It's an exciting challenge, but it's one that I think I'm up for. And you know, even though I am Minister of Democratic Institutions, first and foremost, I'm the Member of Parliament for Burlington, and so it's going to be really important for me to make sure that I'm still here, still present, still active and engaged, and listening to people in this community and hearing what they think about, many of whom I've heard from over the past year.
So we just talk about a little bit about first past the post and the other forms of election, and recently the province of Ontario gave municipalities the opportunity, if we so choose, to use a system of ranked ballots for municipal elections, and we have not decided to do that. We don't believe there's enough time to consider that as an option. I'm not aware of any municipalities that are choosing to go down that path, but it is a system that is used during leadership elections. I believe it's something that the Liberal Party uses, rank balloting or some form of it. So does that make sense at any level for elections other than leadership conventions or electing a leader? Is there merit to looking at that?
I think there's merits in looking at all systems, right? And if you look around the world, each country does things their own way, right? And so really, you know, what my task now is understanding what that landscape is and understanding what's best for Canada. And, you know, what guides me always is what's in the best interest for Canada and for Canadians.
So Karina, shortly after your appointment, I think it was the day after your appointment, I heard you on the radio on Metro Morning on CBC with Matt Galloway, and he was relentless. And I'm not going to be I'm not going to be that relentless in asking the question, but I will ask this, and maybe we'll move on to something else. Take you off the hot seat here. So when will you be briefed enough and provide some sort of definitive direction of how we're going to tackle the issue of the system of election and whether we're going to consider a change or not?
I think I know. I think I will know when I've been briefed enough. I think I will, you know, when you know you're ready to make a decision, you know. And so that's when it's going to be.
So I have to ask another question. So you said when you're ready to make a decision. So how does that work? You're going to make a decision to something to recommend to your cabinet? Do you recommend it to the House? How will that process work?
Well, there's many different ways that those decisions can be made. So some of it will be taking them to cabinet, some could be taking it to the House, some could be taking to Canadians. And so those are all options that I'm going to be reviewing over the coming weeks and months, and then presenting something to Canadians. Okay,
so maybe in 3 months I can push a little harder on that subject material. Listen, let's switch gears, and I can push about something else that at this stage is probably more important to me as mayor of the city of Burlington. That's federal infrastructure funding. When are we going to see an announcement about how that program is going to be unfolded and the timing? Any idea?
I know you've been, in your office, have been great working with us in terms of expressing concerns that you may have had about how Phase 1 was done, and we're looking at it right now to make sure that we're trying to meet the needs of the municipalities, and City of Burlington has been vocal in you know what worked and what didn't work. So before there's an announcement, we want to make sure that we're addressing the concerns that were addressed. Everyone was grateful for the money. It wasn't that I don't want to make it sound like there were a lot of negative comments, but I think there's some tweaking that needs to be done, and that's something that we're working on. So I mean, you're going to expect some announcements in the budget, obviously, but before you start to, and it will be soon. It's not going to take long. I know that the minister has been meeting with the mayors to find out how we can make it work for you.
So, and the budget will be, our expectation as far as the general timing of the federal budget will be April-ish?
March, April.
March, April?
Yeah, in the spring.
Yeah,
so
early spring.
In a few months we're going to hear something more definitive about the infrastructure funding.
But as always, we'll be in touch with your office.
Of course.
You won't be finding out about it through the news. So
no,
you know,
of course. And of course, the big concern that municipalities have had is this sort of concept of incrementality, that something if we have currently planned would not be eligible under the certain terms and conditions that have been set out for the infrastructure funding. So we were sort of forced to pull out something out of that we figure out quickly on a napkin out of our back pocket and say, well, here, this is new, so this is something that we should consider. So that was a major issue, and I'm looking forward to us wrestling with that and getting that resolved at some point.
Of course, one of the issues that we have is that, you know, I deal with Oakville and Burlington, both of whom are well organized, have an asset plan, have you really know what you're doing in terms of your capital projects. But we're dealing with municipalities across Canada, and we have to have a program that's going to work for all of them. So what works, it's a challenge to make sure that works, because we want to make sure that our federal money are creating new projects, not replacing property taxes. So you don't want a project to be done that would have been done anyway, and you use federal money for it, and then the new project isn't done. So it's finding that balance and working with the municipalities that are well prepared and are well organized, and also some that may not be quite. As Clark Somerville said at our meeting at the region yesterday, their smallest municipality has 11 residents.
So I mean, I'm on the board and the executive of the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and the province of Ontario has 444 municipalities, ranging from Toronto all the way down to 100 people or 50 people or whatever it is. No, it's a big challenge trying to come up with a program that can work for all. It's a big challenge, and it's a big challenge not just with infrastructure funding, but with other programs that both the federal and provincial governments offer.
But know that you have two advocates.
No, I get it. No,
and that want to make sure to see that we have adequate and sufficient federal funding for the future.
So I'm 100% confident that you exactly know where we're coming from and what our concerns are, and you will be articulating those to the appropriate people in the federal government. You're connecting with Burlington residents all the time, as I am. What are the issues that you're hearing recently from Burlington residents? Karina, what are you hearing from residents?
I mean, I still continue to hear a lot about seniors issues. I think that's the number one thing that I hear about in this community, or in my riding at least, and particularly with regards to
I was going to ask you
pensions.
Okay.
Pensions, with regards to health care, with regards to transportation, just the general housing, the general change of going from working to retirement and living on a smaller income and having to manage that and preparing and planning for that as well. I mean, is a big thing that I hear a lot about in my office. And so I'm really interested in advocating for issues that are important for seniors in Burlington. So when it comes to accessible and affordable housing, when it comes to pension enhancements, when it comes to making sure that we're thinking about what a seniors price index might be, that's something that I think is a really interesting idea.
So what do you mean by that?
So one of the things that we had talked about during the campaign was a seniors price index, which would basically take the basic basket of goods that seniors have, right?
As opposed to the consumer price index.
As opposed to the consumer price index, because we know that a lot of the goods that seniors consume are at a higher cost than the regular consumer price index, right? And so how can we develop something like that and then index that to some of the social security programs that we have that support our seniors? So I think that's a really interesting idea that merits further investigation and consideration, but also really just being open to what those issues are for seniors in Burlington, hearing them and making sure that I'm advocating for them at the federal level.
Yeah. So I believe that senior there's research that has been done that shows back in the 60s the poverty rate for seniors in Canada was like 35%, and it's certainly declined dramatically since the early 60s. But there are still people that are very challenged.
And particularly in Burlington, and actually this is a great opportunity for me to say, is that if you're a low-income resident and you need help filing your taxes, you can come to my office, or you can go to the Burlington Public Library to make sure that you put your taxes in and you get the benefits that you need.
At no charge.
At no charge, and it's run by volunteers. So I really encourage those who need help with their taxes, who are at the low-income level. I think it's individuals with an income lower of $35,000 a year, and couples or families lower than $40,000 a year.
Now, Pam, you represent a different area of Burlington than Karina, obviously, the northeast part of the city, which is newer. Housing stock is newer. A lot of the people are younger, and of course, you represent a similar area in Oakville, in the north part of the city of or the town of Oakville. What are you hearing from the residents that you represent?
So I don't hear about seniors issues. A lot about the economy and taxes. I hear a lot about transportation.
In what way?
That people want to make sure that they're moving. It's certainly an issue. Increased investment in transit to make sure that it's convenient to do that last mile. The province is investing a lot in Metrolinks, but it's challenging for people to leave their car at home and make those connections to if they're working out in Toronto. And then the other one, quite frankly, that I hear a lot about is animal welfare.
Oh, yes, I do too.
A lot. So there was a private member's bill about updating our animal welfare laws. There's also
Are we talking about agriculture? Are we talking about pets?
Animal rights.
And basically, when I was on Oakville Council, I worked a lot with the Humane Society. And so in terms of laying charges for mistreatment of animals. And so there was a private member's bill on that. That was the #1 issue I heard about. Right now,
I have to say the same.
Okay, so I'd like to be briefed on that at a a later date, because this is obviously of interest to us, because the city has animal control and bylaws with regard to pets.
And the other one right now that I'm hearing from a number of people about is the transportation of animals. And there's a consultation that's been going on about updating animal transportation laws. But it was interesting. We actually did a survey in the summer of what is the #1 issue, and by far it was the private members bill, which was defeated. But the Justice Minister has committed to reviewing the animal welfare legislation in the criminal code. So it was by far the #1 issue that I heard about.
And it should be noted that both Pam and I did vote in favor of that bill to update our animal cruelty laws.
Even though the bill failed.
Yeah.
Interesting. I want to find out more about what people have talked to you about. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back talking with our 2 MPs from the City of Burlington right after this break. Welcome back to Burlington Matters. I'm Mayor Rick Goldring of the City of Burlington, and with me today are my 2 guests. We have Karina Gould, the MP for Burlington, and the Minister of you're the Honourable Karina Gould now, the Minister of Democratic Institutions, as well as MP for Burlington, as well as Pam Damoff, the MP for Oakville, North-Burlington. Pam, you've been working on the whole issue of violence against women. I must say it is a huge issue in my mind. It really hit me a couple of years ago at the 25th anniversary of the massacre in Montreal of those young engineering students at École Polytechnique. When some stats were read out that between that time and now, the statistics with regard to violence against women have not changed much. So I know you're involved in that issue. You're Vice Chair of the Standing Committee on the Status of Women. Tell us what you're working on right now.
So we just completed a study on violence against young women and girls. So the minister has been doing a countrywide consultation on violence against women and girls, but we were focusing on young women. So things like cyber violence, which has become more and more prevalent, where you've got young women in particular who experience violence online, and where do they turn? Things like the rape culture on campus. So our study is complete. We just are working on the final report right now, and I have to tell you, the statistics are frightening.
They are frightening.
And the lack of willingness of young women to report crimes, or even to know when it is a crime. With the internet and cyber violence, there's a real challenge for young women and girls to know when they are being violated and when they should report it. And sometimes when they do report it, the answer they get is, well, just put away your phone and don't go online, which is not a solution. And so we will be providing a report. And
so what can we hope to come out of that report?
Well, quite frankly, a lot of it is provincial in terms of educating. But the biggest thing that we heard was more digital literacy for students from a younger age. And so there'll be a number of recommendations in there, and then we'll be working with the minister to try and get some of this put into legislation. We did have additional funding last year for Status of Women, and a lot of things that we do. I'm also on the Public Safety Committee, and some of that funding could come through public safety to groups like Media Smarts, who do advocacy and education for young people on how to navigate the new world that we have.
Yeah, it's a grave concern in my view. I was staggered at the statistics that we have, even in our community, the region of Halton, of how prevalent violence against women is. It knows no bounds. It certainly is with young people, but it's with older people as well. It's with all demographics, all different socioeconomic classes of people. It knows no bounds. It is really staggering.
And we've got some amazing groups here in Halton Women's Place, and we also had SAVIS come up to Ottawa, and both those groups did presentations to our committee, and they're doing, we need to engage men in the conversation.
Absolutely.
And both of them are doing some amazing programs, and they shared them with the federal government, because if you only have women involved, nothing's going to change. We need everybody at the table, and we need men being involved. And I think locally,
it's not a woman's problem; it's a man's problem.
Well, it's an everybody problem.
It's an everybody problem.
Yeah.
But I guess I heard a speaker some time ago about the issue who pointed out strongly that it is because of what men do that causes this problem. And yeah, we all have to own it, but men have to own it very clearly as well.
Well, I saw Leah Parsons speak at Sheridan College just recently, and she also appeared at our committee, and she said with her daughter Ratea had committed suicide, and she said she had talked to her daughter, but she realized that all the boys had not had that conversation with their parents. And as I looked around the room, the one thing that really saddened me was that it was, I would say, 95% women that were at the event. And we need to bring more people out, and we need to have the men and young boys involved in the conversation for sure. Absolutely,
and the work of Halton Women's Place in the region of Halton in Burlington contributes greatly to the dialogue. And it's sad that Women's Place, the Halton Women's Place exists because it is for women to escape abusive relationships, often with children.
But it's not big enough.
And sadly, it is not big enough. And so as much as we want to put them out of business, there's a significant need for what they do right now. And unfortunately, it's not shrinking, it is growing. On to a more sort of happier note, it is Canada's sesquicentennial this year. It is the 150th anniversary of Confederation, and for a previous show that I taped, I was talking to somebody about remembering being at Expo 67. I know that either one of you probably remember that.
I was there.
It certainly was maybe you don't remember it.
You weren't there.
I was not, no.
Karina definitely wasn't there. But it certainly was it was a great event. But now Canadians from coast to coast to coast are celebrating both locally and nationally. So how are you going to celebrate individually and as a federal government? How are you going to celebrate Canada 150?
Well, so on January 1st, Pam and I and you had the great opportunity to announce some Canada 150 funding here in Burlington at Tansley Woods. And we're excited to be supporting the work of the city and all of the activities that you're doing. Also the Art Gallery of Burlington and the Halton District School Board. As you probably know, there are 4 themes to Canada's 150th celebrations this year, celebrating our environment, young people, our diversity, and reconciliation with Indigenous peoples. And so I think those 4 themes are really important to reflect upon over the past 150 years and to guide us moving forward into the next 150. And you know, we're just delighted to be able to celebrate the sesquicentennial. It's a great opportunity, and it'll be a great party.
So I kicked it off here in Burlington, and then I went and did the polar bear dip to make sure. What more Canadian thing can you do than jumping in Lake Ontario? I did. Supporting a good cause. And then, you know, there's so many events. I really applaud the City of Burlington for what you're doing as a municipality for Canada's 150th, and encouraging residents to have celebrations, have local celebrations.
I'm so excited about the 150 Love My Hood events this year.
That's just, it's tremendous. And getting people out and getting to know their neighbors and getting to know each other, it's really, so I'm looking forward to taking part in some of those, you know, the smaller local celebrations, because I think they're so important, and you're doing a tremendous job on that. You really are.
You know, there's all sorts of benefits to community coming together, and I must say I didn't really appreciate the scope of community development. I didn't really know what it meant until I was elected to council, you know, 10 years ago. But it's very clear that social connectivity contributes to longevity, contributes to people's health, contributes to people's quality of life, and that connectivity with other people in your community gives you a grounding and gives you a sense of belonging. As I mentioned, contributes to your health and longevity. So they're critically important, and these potential for 150 Love My Hood neighborhood parties to bring neighborhoods together is very exciting.
And celebrate Burlington as well.
And celebrate Burlington, absolutely.
It's fabulous.
Absolutely. So there's all sorts of events planned this year, and of course Canada Day on July 1st. We're going to have another great event that day. the mayor's office, and I've been very involved in the mayor's Millennial Youth Advisory Committee and connecting with a younger demographic, and I know both of you are engaging young people in your in our communities. Karina, I would say arguably one of the reasons you were elected was the fact that you engaged during an election campaign with a lot of young people. So how are you doing with that, youth connections, and what's the value in your mind of connecting with youth? It may be inherently obvious, but why don't we just talk about it for a minute?
Yeah, well, so first of all, I was delighted to be a guest at your Millennial Advisory Council. You have some fantastically bright young individuals there who I think are really going to help guide Burlington into the future. And I guess that's the benefit of engaging with youth, is that we're talking about people who are passionate and care about what kind of future they're going to grow into. And so I also have a youth advisory council here in Burlington. We have about 30 high school students aged 14 to 19, a couple of university students as well, who come share their ideas, share their passions, ask questions, and really help me understand what they're going through. I'm a younger person myself. I found out when I went to your Millennial Advisory Council that I am indeed
you would fit right in on that committee.
Yeah, I am a millennial. I didn't know that, but I'm happy to be one. And but it's also important, I think, to engage and to understand that youth, like any demographic, are not monolithic, right? They have different experiences, they come from different backgrounds, and they have different hopes and aspirations. And so it's important to make sure that we hear their voices, to understand where we need to go into the future and what we need to be focusing on right now as well. So I've had a phenomenal experience with this group of 30 wonderful, smart, passionate young people in our community, and I'm really looking forward to continuing the work that I do with them.
Excellent. Pam?
And same with mine. I've got about 30 students, high school students from both Oakville and Burlington. Incredibly energetic. And it's great to hear their points of view, and it's also great to share with them what the government is doing. And the last one I did was about employment for people with disabilities, and had someone come in to talk about the human rights side of it, but also I had a young lady come in to speak about the fact she can't find work as someone with a disability. So that's an issue that I've been focused on, but it also was an opportunity to share it with these young people. And hopefully as they get older and they're out in the workforce and they're employing people, they'll have a different perception of what the world is like, and share with them that our government is doing an accessibility and inclusion consultation right now, and get a younger perspective on that. As you know, you tend to get the same demographic that always is involved when you're doing consultations, and we need to hear from young people. We need to hear from people of all abilities. We need to hear from all people, all residents, not just one demographic. So the Youth Council's been a great way to have information sharing both ways, to hear from them and also share with them what we're doing.
If we're getting together, we're doing the show again in 2 years from now, say, and that will be in the beginning of 2019.
So you'll have just been reelected?
Yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah, sure. Anyway, thanks for reflecting back on me and giving me a question, or inferring a question there. But anyway, we'll carry on with me hosting the program here. But in 2019, 2 years from now, and you look back at the previous 2 years, what has to have happened for you to look back with pride as you head into a re-election campaign? What has to have happened as far as how would you deem your tenure successful?
Well, for me, I find my riding in North Burlington has not been vocally represented in the past. It's an area that I want to see it better, really well represented in Ottawa. So for me, to make sure that people know where we are and what we're doing and how amazing my riding is, and also ensure that we get things like Canada Summer Jobs, make sure that we've got lots of jobs in my riding, lots of students employed. And personally, I want Halton to be a leader in employment for people with disabilities, and if that can start to happen in the next 2 years, I would be thrilled.
Well, we can all work on that together.
Yes, we
Absolutely.
can. Yeah.
Karina, briefly.
Yeah, so briefly.
Yeah, briefly.
Okay.
We got to wrap up.
Okay, all right. Well, I guess for me, I think what's most important is making sure that residents know that I'm engaged, making sure that they know that I'm listening, making sure that they know that they can contact me when they need to, and providing the services that they need. And then on top of that, it would be to continue to have a successful working relationship with my federal counterparts in Burlington and the region, but also with the city and Halton region, to make sure that I can look back in 2019 and say, we all work together for Burlington. And I think that we do that now really well, and I hope we continue to do that in the future.
Great. Well, thank you very much to Pam Damoff, the MP for Oakville, North Burlington. Thank you very much to the Honourable Karina Gould, the Minister of Democratic Institutions and the Member of Parliament for Burlington, for joining me today on Burlington Matters.